Welcome to the Geekcentric podcast, and welcome to a very special Behind the Geeks episode. If you're joining us for the first time, my name is Nate, and we are Geekcentric, a podcast focusing on the world of movies, TV shows, games, toys, and collectibles, and all things Geekcentric. Joining me for today's journey into the big city of Zootopia, he says, yaks on, yaks off, and just like any herbivore, he enjoys a good green every now and then. He's Darcy, the dank dog, Hudson. How's it going, Darcy?
I'm doing good, thanks. How are you?
Good. Bark, bark. Darcy, in our review, you mentioned you wanted to be a dog. Would you want to be a shaggy dog? Is that kind of what you would go for?
Yeah, I'm thinking something like I've got a Bernie Doodle at home named Moose, and he's a very chill, laid-back dog. He's always hanging out with me in the garage when I go out for my, afternoon green break. So he is very much the type of dog I think I would be, just very chill and relaxed, and again, shaggy hair, kind of like myself.
Yeah, that hair would get everywhere, though. I mentioned in our review for Zootopia Plus, which is out now, by the way, if you want to check that out on podcast services, how I'd be a cat. But I feel like we'd still be good friends in Zootopia.
Oh yeah, for
sure. You know what I mean?
For sure.
Yeah. I think if a bunny and a fox can become friends, I think anything is possible.
Oh yeah, dogs and cats get along all the time too. It's just kind of a myth almost that the dogs don't like cats. So yeah.
Yeah, we'll squash that myth when we get to when we get to the city of Zootopia. Now we're getting this interview to you a little bit late. But let me tell you, it's worth it because of the special guest we had. Justin and I had the pleasure of sitting down with some of the cast and crew behind Disney's Zootopia Plus, which is streaming right now on Disney Plus. Go check it out. We gave a really, really glowing review for the series, which Darcy got the chance to join us for. Justin sat down with series director JOSIE TRINIDAD, director Trent Correy, and producer Nathan Curtis, who gave some really great insight into the origins of this series, and Justin gave them some really great ideas on maybe what property they could explore next. And then for myself, I had the immense pleasure to sit down and chat with the legendary Bonnie Hunt, who has done so much work for Disney over the years. You might know her as Sally from Cars, Rosie from A Bug's Life, the mom from Cheaper by the Dozen, Kate Baker. And alongside her, we were joined by Canadian comedy legend Don Lake, who plays Stu Hopps in the show. And both of them made me laugh and smile so much. Darcy, what would you say, before we get to the interviews here, what is your favorite Bonnie Hunt role? She's got like over 60 plus roles.
Yeah, and I know her a lot from, of course, the Disney movies you mentioned. I heard her voice a lot more than I've seen her. But again, one of the standout roles for her that I remember was Cheaper by the Dozen when I was growing up. That was a favorite movie of mine. I mean, I have 3 brothers myself, so we do have a pretty large family. And seeing the hecticness on screen with that family kind of made me think of my own. And so that was definitely one that I liked a lot.
Yeah, it's always nice when the movie moms can almost feel like you're kind of like, that's kind of like my mom, like that. It definitely aligns. And so especially with the chaos, I've been to the Hudson Clan family home during family events before, and it can get pretty crazy. I think I really enjoyed her in Cheaper by the Dozen as well. I think for me though, Sally she's such a great character in Cars, and I hope that we get more stories, maybe even focused on her in Cars. Especially after we did the review for Cars on the Road, which again, another great animated series on Disney Plus. And it's cool. I've now interviewed 2 cars from Cars, which is super dope. If a certain someone wants to come on the podcast and say, wow, I would be more than happy to meet with Lightning himself. But yeah, no, I think she's just done so much and so many roles. And even, I think Don, I was looking up some of the stuff he's done, and I'm like, wow, I completely didn't know he was in that. I think he's kind of been sort of, the comedic relief for a lot of different series. One that comes to mind was Space Force, which he was in, which I think sadly has now been canceled, but I did enjoy him in that show.
Oh yeah, he was a lovable goof in that show. That's my most recent memory of him, but his comedic chops are great. So, I mean, seeing you get to talk to him was a lot of fun.
So good. Well, listen, speaking of that, let's get to those interviews with the cast and crew of Zootopia Plus. Please welcome Josie Trinidad, Trent Correy, Nathan Curtis, Don Lake, and Bonnie Hunt.
Hello, Trent, Josie, and Nathan. My name's Justin. Welcome to the Geekcentric podcast. How you guys doing today?
Hey,
Great.
Justin.
Thanks for having us, Justin.
Thank you for taking some time. I'm very excited to chat with you guys about this series and returning to Zootopia. And, these stories are just absolutely charming and a complete delight. My first question is for Trent. As I understand it, you made the initial pitch for this project. So I got to know, what was it about Zootopia that made you want to dive in and tell new stories?
Yeah, I mean, what wasn't it about Zootopia, honestly? Because I'm such a fan of the movie and the characters. I was an animator when the first movie came out, and I'd worked with a few of the characters and just wanted to revisit that world. So Disney Animation opened up to everybody in the studio, come pitch your ideas, and it was a blind submission. And I put them out there, and they were just seeds of an idea. They were, what if we saw an action episode with Stu and Bonnie Hopps? And it was always pitched as a kind of choose your own adventure that weaved through the movie. And then layered on top of that was also the genres. So there was a lot to them. And then I brought them to Josie and Byron and Jared, the original filmmakers of Zootopia. And they said, you got to push these, go edgy, go have fun with them. And I just feel so privileged that they got greenlit and we could actually make these silly little shorts.
Well, yeah, because they're tons of fun, and I love that you bring up the genre themes. I'm gonna touch on that in a little bit. I would love to know, Nathan. I know that you've had your chance of working on a variety of Disney animated projects like Encanto, and one of my favorites, Raya and the Last Dragon, which I absolutely loved. But this is your first producing role. Is that correct? Like, this is your first sort of like really stepping into that. What was that experience like, and transitioning into this sort of? I guess it must be more involving than maybe some of the past roles that you've had, right?
That's correct. I mean, to be honest, this has been a dream come true. And to be honest, the Zootopia itself, I worked on Zootopia, the original film. Mm-hmm. Being able to work on Zootopia Plus is phenomenal. Trent and Josie as partners in this, they're such visionaries of what they wanted to bring to the screen. It was very easy for me to do my job with Trent and Josie in the director's seat. And then the crew and the entire staff at Disney Animation, again, I couldn't have asked for a better crew or better project to start with this type of career.
Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't agree more. I think again, one of the things that really jumps out to me, as we were talking about before, is these genre inspired themes to each of the shorts. Now, I guess this question would be for both Josie and Trent. I want to know how did you come to wanting to frame each episode in those genres, and whose idea was it to parody Godfather? Because I absolutely loved that episode.
Wait, Trent.
Let's give credit to the original movie and Josie and her story team for the Godfather one, because that's really just riffing off what we saw from the movie. And then that made me wonder, I want to see this origin story of Mr. Big, and definitely has some of the Godfather 2 references, but it was just a joy. And then Josie, we got to watch the whole team and production team make them look and feel like those genres, right?
Exactly. I mean, that was a part of the having different genres was also making them, making sure they felt like those genres. And so our production designer, Jim Finn, had to do 6 different types of episodes. And, our cinematographers of layout and lighting also had to do a noir, but also reality TV,
Yeah.
And so my hat goes off to them for all doing an amazing job. And to Trent Correy, who of the 6, 4 of the episodes had their genres already sort of attached to them. Like, So You Think You Can Prance, you knew, all right, that's going to be a dance competition. But 2 of them, Duke the Musical and Dinner Rush, the romantic comedy, those were episodes that we had to find. We tried a few things. Maybe the Flash episode should be a nature documentary, sort of with Richard Attenborough narrating, and so and that's when we were throwing out ideas. Maybe it's horror, we were really trying to make sure that each genre was the appropriate one and really told the best story to frame the episode. So we really pushed ourselves to make sure that we were making smart, creative decisions.
Well, it paid off because it's tons of fun, and a lot of those little ideas that you had there, I'd love to see them in a season 2. Just saying, just saying. A horror one would be great. I think that's great, and a nature one would be fantastic. I also thought it was really interesting intertwining these shorts with the existing story of Zootopia. Can you guys explain a little bit? Again, I'm not sure who to necessarily address.
I say Trent.
Yeah,
Trent, take it away because you had that idea for your previous Olaf.
Yeah, so I directed a couple of ago called One Slam with Dan Abraham, and that was a sneak peek of how Olaf was created and when we first met him during the first Frozen, right after Let It Go. So and it just as a fan, I love the kind of choose your own adventure movies. And with a movie like Zootopia, where it feels like New York City, there's so many opportunities of that. And if you shift the camera 30 degrees, what am I missing off screen right here? So it was pitched as a that it would run in parallel with the original movie.
Yeah, and I think it really does speak to the fans to kind of pick up those Easter eggs of like, oh, I remember when that happened, right?
Yeah. And there
was a ton of it I missed, but there were some that I was like, hey, wait a minute. I started catching on. Like after the first episode, and then as we were going through, I was catching on. But I thought it was clever, and I thought it was a really interesting choice versus just saying, you know what, we're going to start fresh. We're just going to do like stories of people that live in Zootopia. Trying to bring it back to the movie is really interesting. And my colleague, who's also one of our co-hosts, he mentioned it's very Lion King 1.5. Analogy that he referenced, where it's like kind of sideline of what happens in and around the story that we already know and love.
So Justin, I hope people go back and watch the original movie too, and just
I'm going to.
They think like, oh, Judy, right behind you up the escalator. Molly's right down there. I really hope they see those areas.
Yeah, well, that's probably one of the things that one of the many things that fans are really going to connect with from this series. My final question is for all of you guys. I know each time you work on a project and you're involved in this creative process, you learn something new, you take something away from it, and you bring it into your next projects. I'd love to know for each of you guys, what was one of those highlights from this project that you will choose that's going to stay with you as you move through into your next projects?
Oh, this is gonna sound corny, Justin, but here we go. I'm gonna take away with me working with Nathan and Josie and learning from them. At the end of the day, it's all about the people, and gosh, I learned a ton from these two, and not just them. The whole leadership team is just a whole new learning experience. So that's my corny answer for you, Justin.
That's spoken like a true director, man. Collaborative.
Yeah. No, it's true. I was going to say collaboration too, Justin, and just say the trust that we had with each other, especially during the pandemic when we couldn't, we just had to trust our artists, and we knew that they were coming off of Raya, which is a very intense production. But we had all, we just entrusted our animators and our VFX soup and everyone we knew that they're Disney animation, where they're going to do the most amazing work, make it feature quality, and always give you 110%, so we just had to get out of their way.
It's really the people of the studio are what makes these films actually as great as they are.
Yes.
So
yeah. I'm very happy to hear that, because as someone who loves to work on projects, it's always about the team effort. It's about everyone who brings their best to these projects to make it the best. So I love that you guys are celebrating that. Thank you so much for taking the time. This was tons of fun. I always love learning more about the creative insight that goes into sort of the decision making with this. And yeah, this series is fantastic. I'm looking forward to seeing more. And hey, if you guys, I would love to see the same sort of treatment done. I know you guys know people with Raya and the Last Dragon. I think that there's a whole lot more to explore there in the same vein of world building. I'm just going to throw it out there.
Get those petitions going for Raya and season 2 Zootopia Plus. Get those going.
I gotcha.
Absolutely, Justin. I will tell Kui and Dawn, who are just downstairs.
Awesome. Well, you guys have a great day, okay?
You too. Thank you.
Take care.
My name is Nate. Welcome to the Geekcentric podcast. Thank you so much for joining me today. How are you both doing?
Nice. Thanks, Nate. On your podcast.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I anytime you guys want to join us on the podcast. I absolutely loved Zootopia Plus. I think I missed Zootopia so much over these years. So I was so happy to head back. Bonnie, I wanted to start with yourself. You're no stranger to playing some pretty amazing moms over the years. I wanted to know, I think Bonnie Hopps is a next level mom in that she has 276 children, and in this short she pulls off, and that we know of. There might be more. What's her and Stu been up to, but I will say,
it better be Stu.
Yeah, right, absolutely, not the male bunny. But I will say, the Fast and Furious style driving that Bonnie Hopps pulls off. Are you as good as a driver as Bonnie Hopps?
I think people are terrified when I'm driving. One of my brothers always says, pray for me whenever he gets in the car. He says, pray for me, Bonnie's driving. No, it was how much fun to get lost into these characters and the imagination of these wonderful storytellers. And then getting to work with Don, who's one of my best friends in the whole entire universe. He's so talented and so funny, and it just makes me better at what I do. So yeah, I feel lucky to play moms and anything. I didn't get to be a mom in real life. So I have a really good friendship with a lot of the children who played my children in movies and television. So that's a bonus.
That's fantastic. You get to be a mom to so many. And I think to so many people watching, I think they also sort of feel the same way. Dawn, for yourself, we see Stu having a pretty rough go at seeing his daughter off to the big city. When you left your parents in Toronto to head off to Cal Arts to LA, did you have a similar experience to Judy Hopps?
Well, it's interesting. I didn't know how I was going to propose it to my dad.
Yeah.
Saying,
was your grandma still alive, Don? Was your grandma still around?
Yeah, my grandmother was still around. Yeah, and our mom had passed away, so I felt equally. It's like, oh, this is going to be a tough question. But he was so great. He was very honest. He said, look, if you want to do that, you go and do it. And he kind of knew, I think, that I wanted to end up down there. But he said, you go for it. But if it's your fault, don't blame me. It's your fault if it doesn't work out.
That's it.
Yeah.
That's
so
fair.
Yeah, I thought so too.
Don started whenever he was at Cal Arts. He was working at the Beverly Hills hardware store. Yeah. Got some great stories from that place.
And what a crazy reality that was, because you'd have these movie stars come in, like Fred Astaire and these big stars. Doris Day would come in and get stuff, and you're going, my God, that's Doris. And then to watch Doris Day nickel and dime everything on the invoice, but then you found out that her an ex-husband took all her money, and it's like, oh no, you know what, Doris, you know what?
Miss Day.
Yeah.
Miss Day, take the hammer. Take as many hammers as you want.
That sounds like a very similar career to a carrot farmer. So I like that. Now, both of you have such an excellent acting catalog, both on camera and in the voice acting booth. Can either of you describe what is, I guess, the most rewarding process of voice acting?
Well, when you get to have when you be able to interchange with another actor, the way we were able to is certainly the biggest gift. And then to have people like Trent and Josie in the booth, and to hear them encourage it and like that, and kind of give you the green light to keep going, have fun with it, explore it. And that's what they allowed us to do.
It's such a surprise when you see it all put together.
Yeah.
We get to see all the levels of what's bringing the character to life, besides us giving our heart and soul to it because we care so much about these characters. And it's so fun to see. I mean, these awe-inspiring, beautiful worlds they create visually is unbelievable.
And I've heard sometimes they film you while you're in the booth. So is it ever a surprise when you sort of see your characters and it's like, that was my facial reaction just in that moment?
Yes.
That's the joy of it, right? Is seeing the little mannerisms. It's like, oh my gosh, I do that all the time or whatever.
I saw that in Cars with Sally. It was wheels would move when my show. It was so cool. So
that's fantastic. Very cool. Now, I mean, you just mentioned that you've both been really great friends for such a long time. Bonnie and Donnie. You know what? It's a celebrity couple name. They are such incredible partners in this short. So that must come naturally to you two at this point.
Yes.
Yeah, a lot of love and respect, and just a long history, and that's what's so great for couples to relate to. I mean, of course, the most uncomfortable part for us was when we had a kiss. There's a kissing scene. Don and I are like brother and sister. We were uncomfortable with the animated characters.
Yeah, you make the little kissing noises and everything.
Oh my
too.
God.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Kisses
It was
too.
so
Yeah.
horrible. I mean,
Yeah.
it was, it's
Yeah.
fine, but it was still. We're
And
like,
then when we got to see it, and I remember kind of leaning in my chair watching it, going, "Oh my God, we're gonna kiss. We're
Yeah.
gonna kiss. We just
Oh,
kissed."
no.
that's ridiculous.
Yeah, absolutely.
So funny.
Oh man. Okay. Lastly, for my final question here to kind of wrap up with you both. I'm having a good time chatting though. How, I think your characters are both so incredible at giving great parental advice. Specifically, I think Stu is known over the years for giving some of the best advice I've ever seen. Could you both, each of you, give me one wonderful piece of parental advice for myself and our listeners?
I'll pass on what my mom always said to me.
Mm.
Be mindful of the energy you put in the world because it has a ripple effect. So I
Wow.
think, that's, I always try to be mindful as much as you can be in today's world. Just know that when people see a musical, they want to dance all the way home.
Yeah.
So if something's that powerful in your storytelling, hopefully you could put some energy into somebody that is healing and joyful.
I love that. I love the idea that someone might, sort of see Bonnie and Stu on screen or some of the characters that you've portrayed and just sort of be inspired to be like, when I grow up, I want to be as great a parents as they are,
Ah,
Yeah. As real. And of course, my advice as Stu would not be good.
Yeah.
Tying a little bit to what I said about my dad. Don't blame your misfortune on others.
Okay.
well, that's really true though, because
Yeah.
blame is an easy way to say and to not think about what your part might be in it. That's really good advice, Don.
Thank you for pulling that out of the fire.
No,
that's
I
good.
really
That's
believe
good
that.
advice.
You're right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Blame the distraction. You can't
Yeah.
you can't progress if you blame. You have to go, okay, what can I do differently? Because you can't control the other stuff.
Right.
Yeah. You take your failures and you learn from them, I think. And that's kind of a great lesson.
Yeah, good sailor on a calm sea.
That's it. Well, both of you, thank you. Thank you so much for your
Yeah.
time and for bringing me some smiles in this interview and smiles to everyone who gets to watch Zootopia Plus. You're both absolutely phenomenal. And yeah, thank you so much for joining me today.
Oh,
Thanks, Nate.
Thank
Perfect.
you.
Have a great evening.
You
Bye-bye.
too.
And we're back. They were all so lovely to take time to talk to us. I loved, especially for Justin, hearing some of the insight into the creation of the series. And it was cool to hear that Disney is open to, and I mean, we've heard this with studios like Pixar before, but I who knows? All these studios can be a little different. But the fact that Disney is willing to hear the pitches of, I think Trent said he was an animator at the time, and then, he got to do the Olaf series and now this series. And it's just so lovely to hear stories like that.
Mm-hmm. It's really cool getting, again, you said the insight behind the shows and movies that we like. And with these people having worked on so much, they clearly have a wide base of knowledge that they can share with us. So again, Justin picked the right questions to ask to get some cool responses from those people.
Absolutely. And it was, I think, hearing the response in terms of the team dynamic, which you can tell they had so much fun, working on this series and then bringing themselves into this series as well. And it sounds like, after getting to see the interview, they have really sort of done a lot to implement their own stories and different parts of them. I got a chance to see another interview with Josie where she talks about the Real Housewives of Rodentia and how she's a huge Real Housewives fan. And so to sort of see the way that they sort of bring themselves into these stories, and then, the idea of parodying Godfather 2 was Trent's idea. It's just cool to sort of see where, after watching the series, where these sort of different stories kind of originate.
Yeah, especially because I said some of the stories came from that movie that were hinted at, and then some of the stories were original, and that like that romantic date episode, how that was all coming from their minds, and the first they're saying a David Attenborough nature documentary or something like that. Really cool idea, but also what we got worked really well too. You got to see the characters and introduced to a new side of Zootopia, which was awesome.
But also a Richard Attenborough episode
Richard Attenborough,
would be
yeah.
awesome.
It would be
so
good.
Cool.
Yeah.
I think Trent is probably if Disney wants to keep doing more of these sort of what did they say, camera shifting stories, right? Where it's like they take the story, but shift the camera slightly to see these characters. What were they doing off to the side? Keep this guy around, because he seems to be a really good idea for these, bringing these stories out. And again, the Olaf series that he did was fantastic, and all those shorts, and to kind of see them implement that here. I want more stories like this. And the idea that Justin had with Raya to do
so much potential.
Oh my gosh, the different regions of Kumandra. Like that was, if you listen to the review that we did on the podcast, that was my biggest problem with the movie, is that we just didn't get enough of the different regions. They sort of spent so little time in each spot. So to get like little shorts with like a different character representing each region, cool.
It would be so cool. Again, that Raya was great and everything like that, but it left me wanting so much more because of the world they introduced us to. And shorts like this would be a perfect opportunity to explore more of that world that is already so rich in storytelling potential. So I'm all for that too. Justin had a great idea, and hopefully that little inkling worms its way up the ladder at Disney so that we potentially get something like that.
Well, I mean, even the fact that some of these were the people that worked on Raya, right? And they're in and around those folks as well. As for Bonnie and Don, like, just so lovely. I could have probably talked to them for like an hour. Like, I'll be honest with you. I think I was really taken aback. I don't know about you, but I was really taken aback to hear that Bonnie's never been a mom before. I think, you grow up and you see her in roles like Cheaper by the Dozen, and you just sort of think like, yeah, of course she's a mom, but the fact that she, I think I really do believe that she has gotten to be a mom to all of those kids that she's worked with over the years, but then also all the people who've grown up watching her on screen as one of those characters. I really do think that, and that was a nice moment.
I thought it was really cool just seeing how close the two of them were. They're clearly very good friends, and the way that they were kind of answering each other's questions back and forth and chiming in it was really sweet to see. Like, clearly they care about each other, and you can really see how that extends to the characters that they portray and the story that they're telling. So it was really sweet to see that.
It was so good. And Don's hardware story, like him working at the hardware store in Beverly Hills, working with Doris Day. Like, I was just like blown away. The fact that he sold hammers to Doris Day is so cool. And it's just so cool to sort of get to talk to these people and see where they started, right? And him being Canadian, going through the ladder of work, kind of working and getting a job at Second City and what have you, and going to CalArts. And it's just kind of neat to sort of not just read this stuff on like a Wikipedia page, but get to hear it from the people themselves. That's one of the joys of getting to do this, and I absolutely love it.
Yeah, no, it was really cool. Again, like, just getting the stories behind the people are always awesome to see. And then, like you said, these two, Don, you did that in the interview. Bonnie and Don are such nice people that, again, I can see why you'd want to talk to them for an hour and have a great time doing it the entire time. They're just seem like such sweet people, and again, they really extend to the characters they portray. Yeah,
and like you said, because they know each other so well, they're so comfortable in their own skin, just doing this. I mean, they're what am I saying? They've been doing this for forever. They're masters at this by this point, and talking to press and people like myself. But yeah, man. Again, special huge thanks to Disney Studios Canada for getting us the opportunity to talk to these folks. Again, it's just so neat to watch this stuff and then a couple days later get to talk to these people. So, but yeah, that is it. Thank you so much for joining us for this Behind the Geeks episode. If you enjoyed it, make sure to subscribe to us both here on YouTube as well as on podcast services. For those listening, youtube.com/Geekcentric, you can check us out. And for those watching, the Geekcentric podcast on podcast services, any podcast service. I think we're on all the podcast services. I'm pretty sure.
By now, I think we are.
I think so. You can follow us on socials, on Instagram at We Are Geekcentric, and on Twitter at GeekcentricYT. As always, we've got so much going into this next, few months, the last couple months to round out the year of 2022. We've got a lot of content coming, so definitely, subscribe, click all the things, do all the things, click the bell or whatever you got to do, because we've got, I think we just had an interview recently with some of the cast from Black Panther: Wakanda Forever, which is up on YouTube right now. We also have our spoiler-free review for Black Panther Wakanda Forever. And now that the movie's out, very soon we'll have our spoiler-filled discussion for Black Panther Wakanda Forever. And I am so, so pumped to talk with you, Darcy, about this movie. I cannot wait. But yeah, Darcy, thank you so much for joining me for this wild Behind the Geeks episode. And as we say, love ya.
Laters.